watching this one this close to that Zoe Kravitz movie last week, Blink Twice, because Gina Davis was in it, and it was the first thing I've seen her in a while. So then I watched that, and then I watched this for the rewatch, and it was like watching bookends. It was great.
Well, was this would have been before A League of Their Own, right? Gina Davis was?
I believe League of Their Own was 90s, right?
I think, maybe.
Or was it?
I mean, they were definitely...
this was 88.
They were definitely within, the same generation of film or decade, I mean, but yeah.
Yeah, I think because this was after she had done The Fly, though, correct? Because that Fly was like 84.
Yeah, I think Fly would have been the first thing, right?
So yeah, I feel like that's how she got the pull in for this, was her notoriety in horror,
which is another great. I think sometimes both of them, like the Cronenberg Fly of the 80s and the Vincent Price one. I think was it Vincent Price who did the one in the 50s.
Yeah, but he wasn't the Fly, correct? He was another character.
No, he was another character. Yes, but no, that one's they're both very good. Good thing to do another episode on, of how you can take one idea.
Absolutely.
Essentially the same storyline, but you can have them go in very different directions and still be good.
It's kind of like Batman versus Dark Knight. It's like very good, different takes on the same material.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, like it can be done.
But yes,
for those aspiring to do so.
But speaking of Gina Davis and Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and Batman,
in the words of Jimmy Fallon, Gina Davis. That sounds nice.
We're opening up the spoopy season again.
Oh yeah, I am so ready for it. We are back into spooky season.
Can you believe it's that time of year again?
I can't actually. It came up very quick.
Let me just say this. You shut your mouth for a second here.
You listen to what I'm going to tell you.
You listen to me now. But let me just say
you listen good.
Halloween has, I think, definitely grown beyond what it was even when I remember it being when I was little. And I'm wondering if that's maybe because we're maybe the first generation that had Halloween, that Halloween was a mainstay, like a staple holiday as it was. So much to the point now that it's gotten so big that I cannot find the decorations I want. I cannot find the costumes I want because it's
man. You got to get to your local Spirit. You got to get the Spirit, man. You got to be on. This is why I'm telling you, like
within like it's friggin'.
That's why I'm telling you, it's a September. It's like a 2-month-long ordeal now. You got to be in it in September.
The animatronics at Lowe's are sold out. You can't get them anymore.
Well, there was like a zombie thing that came out this year that's like reactive, like it'll track you.
Oh yeah,
it has like active tracking, and I guess this thing was like a hot ticket item, and it like sold out already. I was like, as soon as I became aware of it, I went to go check it out, and it's not even there anymore. I was like.
But yes, Halloween is now giving Christmas, I think, a run for its money. If not, I'd be interested to see what holiday do people spend more money on. I would say it's probably still Christmas, but Halloween certainly.
I don't know, man. If you include like Horror Nights and Six Flags Horror Fest and all that stuff, I don't know.
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't be outraged if you did.
Yeah, because like I think it's fair because like Christmas gets like the Ogilvy and like the Light Fests and all that stuff, so it's like Halloween can have like a couple things. I don't know,
but yes, but anyway, yes, Halloween has taken over territory to say the least,
big time. And but with the two of them like crunching the surrounding area, what does that leave Thanksgiving?
I don't know. I think we talked about this a little bit, I think, in our Planes, Trains, and Automobiles episode. Like where is Thanksgiving? It's kind of sandwiched in the middle there, yeah.
It's like a thin slice of cheese in that sandwich.
It's like a sushi wrap. Like, it's so thin, it's like that seaweed wrap. It's like... You
just that little piece of nori in there.
You're looking through it. But yes, we bring us here today to discuss our first of the spoopy episodes.
2-month-long ordeal. We're going for it again. It was such a big deal last year. We figured why not go in, do the same with some new titles and some new fun. We got some cool stuff lined up this year. I think our list is looking pretty sharp. I'm excited for what we're bringing to the table here. And I figured, with Tim Burton's new sequel to Beetlejuice, what better way to start with one of the best horror comedies of all time?
Yes.
Michael Keaton's performance, absolutely stellar. This is kind of the film that really launched Tim Burton's career in the way that 2001 launched Kubrick's. It's like, yes, they were around before that. This launched them into another stratosphere.
Mm-hmm. And this...
And all the people who worked with Tim Burton, Danny Elfman, his whole team, especially his art teams, his art directors, all that stuff. Like, he brought a lot of people up into stardom, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this I can remember this being another one, like, just how, like, the Tim Burton Batman launched the animated series. This also launched an animated... I don't know if you remember the Beetlejuice animated show that we grew up with in the 90s. That was a good one. I think it might have just been Beetlejuice, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But I know that there was a sequel that was planned in the mid-90s for Beetlejuice that never fully... Kind of like in the vein of Tim Burton's Superman.
Yeah.
Never fully got there, though they did a lot to, like, pre-plan it, and, like, there was a script. Keaton was in talks. There was pre-pro and everything.
Do you feel like that's what's kind of happening now in the past, like, decade? Is like, because I feel like so many times in the 90s, there were so many movies that, like, we might make a sequel. Like, Beetlejuice, Indiana Jones was supposed to get a sequel at some point in the 90s, never happened.
I know they talked a lot about Spirit Destiny.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There were like a ton of different like franchise, like movies from the 80s that were kind of like done, or early 90s that were over. And it was like, oh, maybe we'll bring them back toward the late 90s. But because the internet was still in its infancy, I don't think, it didn't have the traction like it does today. I mean, I think that's half the reason.
It was so much more like a behind-the-scenes endeavor back then. It was like all studio executives and all, like, you had to clear that hurdle first before anybody would even hear that you were even doing anything with it. It was trickier times. we didn't live in an age back then where Ryan Reynolds could leak the Deadpool footage, and then you get old Deadpool.
There was nothing to leak.
Yeah. So, very different time for sure. And this movie is one that has endured such a test of time. Like, for just like such, I don't want to like oversimplify it and say it was a simple movie, but like in terms of other things that Burton did, there were things in this that were relatively simple by comparison.
Well, I mean, it's simple in the sense of it is a haunted house movie. That's essentially what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
A very different approach, like the style,
and
the
played
way it's
with
told is
shrinking
what makes
sets
it unique.
and stuff, like using the model. Like it did a lot of that kind of stuff in the same way that how like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids did it, but like did it for a completely different purpose. Like, I thought that the backdrop of the model in this was fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
And pulling it up and like looking through like research materials on this, I was shocked to hear that Alec Baldwin thought very little of his performance in this, because I think he's one of the best parts. He and Gina Davis, like them being like the normal anchor, the anchor of normality.
Yeah,
I
love once again, I'm a sucker for good lore in a story.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the world that this kind of opens up, like the afterlife, how haunting.
And the surreality of the imagery, too.
Yeah, and how they have the handbook for the handbook for the recently deceased.
Yeah.
It's like, you're stuck. It's like you're dead, and it's like, oh, at least I get to leave behind the 9 to 5 work style of the world. Like, nope, there it is. It's almost identical. That's the afterlife.
This reads more like stereo instructions. They talk about like the existence of heaven or hell. They're like, no, there's no reference to any of that.
Yeah.
It's just that like just the simple humor stuff in that. Like,
this is one that is definitely a testament to the writing, the performances. Because there's nothing wrong with saying that the idea is simple. It's a haunted house. Family movie.
Well, it's kind of weird to say, but it kind of brings like that Office style humor in a way, like the show The Office, because it's like it brings mundanity to surreality, like the after, like it makes the afterlife into basically a 9 to 5 corporate office. And it's just, there's just something inherently so ridiculous about that.
No, and then having to see Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's characters, the recently deceased, having to come to terms with being dead and how they're going to go about. Okay, it gives a reason as to why do ghosts haunt buildings, and what's the reason for wanting to make people leave. But it takes it. Obviously, you could take this in a dark route, like a much more serious tone. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they kept it a little bit lighter. There are still scary moments, I think, too, especially if you're a kid watching this.
Oh my gosh, yeah! Like the unseen as much as what's shown, like when they cut behind Keaton and like his face blows out into like all the like the tentacles and stuff. The not seeing that scared me more than anything they could possibly showed.
Yeah, no, it's definitely reminds me a little bit.
Touches.
I think did Tim Burton do you remember the movie Monkey Bone that came out?
See, I fell down this exact same spiral a few years ago,
With
and it's
Brendan
not
Fraser.
Tim Burton, but you know why it feels like it is Tim Burton?
But yeah, no, it definitely feels like this. I tend to sometimes get the afterlives in those two movies, Beetlejuice and Monkey Bone, kind of mixed together. Like,
But you know why it feels like a Tim Burton movie?
did Tim Burton executive produce it?
Because it's by the director who did Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And since they like created the style of that movie, like everything that dude has done since has had
that style,
a nugget of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and his style is so similar to Burton's that he so often gets confused with them.
Yeah.
But they are different. But
okay. No,
yeah,
good
it's
to
cool.
know. Good to know.
Yeah, it's interesting. And all around the cast of Beetlejuice is unbelievable. Catherine O'Hara, I could watch her read the phone book.
Yeah.
She is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Everyone in this, I think, gives...
I actually have a fun fact about Jeffrey Jones, too. Have you heard what's happened to him in recent years?
No, what's happened?
So he's in jail, and...
What?
He is apparently a gigantic pedophile.
Oh, God.
And
well, can't say... Should we be shocked, or I don't know.
You know, they're everywhere, I guess. But I think that was the reason for the new one, that the launching off point is going to be his funeral. I was like, yeah, they didn't call him back.
Oh dear God!
Because they kept the reason I like really dug in and looked that up, because they kept showing in the trailers, and I had heard a bit about like his court hearings and stuff back in the day, like when it was happening. I think it was like 2010 or something like that. But yeah, like I was like, oh right, it's definitely his funeral, because they weren't bringing him back. But I am excited for the sequel. It'll be interesting to see where.
And like I wonder too. I'm assuming the fan base is there. I mean, for them to make this, I can't imagine they wouldn't make it if they didn't think it was gonna pull in some of the dollar signs. But I mean, do you think this was one where like, okay, the audience is there? Do you think Keaton and
absolutely.
Burton have enough pull still that they can, like, say, yeah, we're doing this?
Even more so because I think that this fall season is going to be a bit of a horror drought.
Yeah,
because the way that the writers' strike and everything has fallen down, there's been like this shuffle of horror films that has like kind of put this horror season out of sync with horror titles in a very odd way. So I think that this is kind of one of the only few good horror-esque movies we're getting through the entirety of fall. So I think its numbers are going to be huge.
That's fair. Speaking of numbers, I was shocked to read this that you have down here. So Michael Keaton, the titular character of Beetlejuice,
mm-hmm.
who gives, I mean, what do you say about his performance? I mean, it's
legendary.
Yeah,
he basically pulled out a Joker-esque performance. Less than a year later, comes around and plays Batman.
And there was nothing really there to, in the beginning, like, I don't know the origin of Beetlejuice, or if this is a completely original
completely
idea that
original
Tim Burton came up with, or if it's based on like something, else, like a fairy tale or old ghost story.
No, it is completely a fabrication of Burton and Keaton. More so Keaton, even, because there was a lot of blank spaces on the script. They really did leave it open for Keaton to get in there and just play.
Improv. And that's what I think is interesting, because there was nothing... I mean, he's essentially... This is coming straight from scratch then for him, the performance. Like, there's nothing there that I can think of to use as a...
Well, even, like, the look... He, like, got in with the costume designers and, like the makeup teams. Like, he really crafted, like, what Beetlejuice is.
Yeah. Like, there was nothing before to, like, balance him off of, or, like, to use as a reference. If you were taking on the role, like, you always try to look back, okay, what... I can have him be this character, or this character, I can base him off of this. And so this is truly one where I'm like, yeah, this would have been tough, I think, to maybe come up with, because obviously he's a poltergeist like character, but like a comedic caricature of that, like, and kind of a head. I love the illusion. You were talking about the lore, and I love the illusion that, like, because the way Keaton has described him when asked is that, like, he's a man who has lived through every single age of humanity, but throughout all of them has never once taken care of himself. That's how he describes him. And I was like, man, what a perfect description. And, like, that also, like, has an allusion to the lore, where it's like his, like,
whole motivation is like to marry a living human. And so it's like he keeps trying to, like, you get a sense like he has a way of creeping back into the living by doing that, and has done it continuously since the beginning of time.
Well, what I was getting at too before is like, I did not know. You don't stop and think about it, but he's only on the screen for 17 minutes.
Isn't that wild?
That is
I saw that
extremely
too.
wild to me. Like, because when I think of it, I mean, obviously he's the titular character. His name is in the title, and the fact that he's only in it for a little more than 15 minutes is like, whoa. Because like all the scenes I remember are, scenes with him for the most part.
Yeah. Well, you consider, too, it's like how much time the other characters spend talking about him when he's not present on the screen. It's like, it's kind of like the Joker in The Dark Knight. It's like, he same case. Like, he's on screen for a very shockingly limited amount of time.
Yeah.
When you consider, like, the scope of the movie.
This is going to be a reach, but I'm going to do it anyway. He is like the Napoleon of War and Peace. If you've ever read War and Peace, Napoleon is he looms large, Napoleon does, in War and Peace, but you never see him. You barely see him. In fact, I can't remember if you even see him really at all. I think maybe a bit, but you rarely ever, and you never get inside his head, I don't think. I've only read it once, correct me, like, don't hold me to it 100%, but just to show the impact of the character and how, like, Beetlejuice being the main character, or certainly one of them, I was like, whoa, he's only in it for that long? Really? Damn.
Step right up. Come a little closer.
Now, I noticed, too, like some people, like, I'm thinking of that, when you watch this, I'm assuming you watched it again just on your own.
Oh, yeah. This is one of my most commonly rewatched horror comedies, for sure.
I've heard that in more recent cuts, they've cut out the sequence. One of the sequences got cut out. He's still stuck in the model, the brothel scene or whatever that is.
Oh, that's still in there for sure.
It's still in there?
I think that there were certain TV edits where that was cut out a lot. I know. Like, there's, like, that's been, like, the only tricky scene in the whole thing, which I've never, like, really, because there's, like, way worse stuff put on TV.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
So,
it's not like you even really see anything. It's just, I always found that kind of strange that...
I think it's, like, a context anomaly. It's, like, the rest of the movie is, like, palatable to kids even.
Well, yeah.
But it's, like, even minus some swear words. But, like, other than that, it's, like, that's, like, the only anomalous FCC moment, I guess.
Well, I bring that up because I think in certain cuts, like, they'll just, like, almost either cut out that entire sequence, or they'll make such a bad cut that, like, the scene, you don't quite know what happened. It's like, wait, weren't they just talking to him?
They actually, like, bring that up later, so it's in, like, multiple scenes. So it's like, if they cut that out, it's like kind of like did you ever see that one episode of Community that got cut, and, like, it erases an introduction of one of the characters. So it's like there was this whole, like, Mandela effect kind of, like, where like people were watching the show online, but, like, they weren't seeing that episode, and, like, they realized they don't understand where this character came from. So it's getting to be weird with stuff like that.
But no, that's a testament to Keaton's power as an actor, being able to come up with Beetlejuice right out of the ether, like, straight out of it. Like, nothing really.
And then less than a year later, turn around and play Batman.
Yeah. Was this their first? Did we already say this?
I believe this was their first collaboration
together. Okay.
Because I'm trying to think, when was Mr. Mom in relation to this?
It was Mr. Mom was before Batman. I know that much.
Yeah, I just can't remember exactly how far before. It could have been more than a couple years. I'm thinking that was like 82, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because I can but I recently remember seeing, like, a clip from, like, 89, like a TV interview. People going around. So what do you think about Keaton being the new Batman? And it was the same thing every time a new Batman is cast. Everybody hates him until they get inside the suit, and then everyone's like, yeah, he's fine. But it was like, it was like, oh yeah, this sounds exactly like today. They were like, I don't know, Mr. Mom being Batman. I don't think I can get behind that.
I remember it was like every stage of the Nolan years for Batman was like the same thing, because it was like everybody did it for Christian Bale, then everybody flipped out about Heath Ledger, and then
oh yeah, he gives a.
Just chill out. Have some faith.
But anyway, yeah, like, so a lot of this, I didn't realize a lot of this was more improvisational, like, script-wise.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to the comedy of it. I think they left those open spaces and that freedom to get there on the day. And I think with something that is so intentionally funny, I think that's key.
Kind of almost similar to how when I think of like things like that, I think of Robin Williams and his role as the genie in Aladdin.
Yeah,
how
exactly.
like a lot of that had to be something that they came up with after he recorded. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I think that was a lot of the controversy with that. I think that was highly contentious with that because Disney did not operate that way.
Yeah.
Until him. And I know a lot of the animators like really hated him on that because like they had to go back and change all this stuff. So Aladdin was kind of notorious for that just because it changed the way Disney did a lot of it.
Yeah. But speaking of scripts, so going into, one of our, arguably our, if not our main character, second, our Deuterogonist, but I would argue our main character as well, Lydia, played by Winona Ryder. And I didn't know this either.
Beautifully played by Winona.
Yeah, I didn't know this either, but Tim Burton specifically wanted her for this role?
Yeah, he specifically wrote the part for her, which, like, I remember, like, first reading that, like, when I was researching this, like, way back, and I always found that interesting.
Yeah.
Because she was so young. She hadn't done a lot up until that point, and this was kind of the movie that, like, broke her career on a wider scale. So it was that I did find interesting, yeah.
No, and she keeps it, all together. I mean, her friendship with Gina and Alec. I forget Gina and Alec's characters' names.
Their last name is the Maitlands that they're often referred to. Barbara and Adam.
Barbara, thank you.
Their first names. I always remember Barbara because of the one line whenever Beetlejuice is trying to negotiate with Lydia, and he's trying to get out of the model, and he's like, "No, you don't need to talk to Barbara." It's just so good.
Come on, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. There are moments.
Every time I think of that, I think of the Costanza line.
There are moments throughout. I think you could throughout Keaton's career. There are moments where you can still see that the Beetlejuice character creeping in.
Absolutely. I think especially in Birdman.
Oh yeah. In Birdman, well, one I always think of. I don't know why. The humor, at least in the other guys. Yeah. So many times he's like, "Listen, guys, I didn't want to have to get a second job at Bed Bath & Beyond, but I had to," or something. I'm butchering the line, but he says, so I could put my son through school and become a DJ and something like that. It's just like, I'm wondering if like a lot of that feels like, I mean, knowing, is Adam McKay, did he do the other guys? But knowing that he does a lot of improv, I'm trying to guess that he did that too. With Michael Keaton. There's so many. And every time he's saying those lines, I can sometimes see like the Beetlejuice mannerisms coming out. Yeah. When he's telling in the beginning, he was like, "Okay, guys, bring it in." He's like, just a little bit. A little too close. Bring it back. You know what? Just a little bit. Come, right there. There's good.
Oh God! And so many like the mannerisms, like that document I pulled up that you mentioned, where they talk about Keaton really building out the character. It's like he really did craft the mannerisms, like built out the character himself, like full from the ground up.
Yeah, no, and it's like that's what's so impressive is there. Like I was saying, there is no. I can't. I guess you could say. Maybe like older, like maybe like vaudeville characters, or like what are the old, you almost think of the guys in like a carnival, like in an old time carnival, they would have the straw hats and like, the candy cane striped pants and the red jacket and be like, step right up, get you, that's maybe the only character I can think of that would somewhat base Beetlejuice off of. Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's, this is not one where it would have been easy to come up with. It's like, okay, how do I build this completely unknown character from scratch, but make him so that he becomes as iconic? But which, who knows? I don't think anyone ever goes into a role necessarily thinking, I got to make this iconic. Certainly maybe hoping that it will become that way, but just letting...
Yeah, to put something to film on a budget, you have to have that help to some degree.
Yeah.
But, obviously things miss the mark. You just do your best. And pushing things as far and hard as a character like this, is worthy of note and garners attention.
Whoa. Sandworms. You hate them, right?
You hate them, right? I love when he goes to check the business section of the newspaper and it's the obituary. I look like a cute couple, nice and stupid too.
Did they ever explain how he got in the model in the first place? I know, like, the manager, or, you know, their Barbara and Adams.
I think it's kind of alluded to that
social
he's, like,
worker, if you will.
Yeah, I think he's taking, like, it's a two-pronged thing. It's like Beetlejuice is taking note of the two of them. He's, like, actively seeking them out, which is why he's buried in it in the first place. But then, like, for him to be welcomed into their
so it's kind of like the vampire sort of rule where, like, they have to be welcomed into the home first before they can have any power.
You get the sense that there's, like, some layered rules there, but like, we're not fully privy to them as an audience.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's interesting that this is jumping ahead to the sequel a little bit, being speculative.
Well, no, yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that Monica Bellucci is cast for the new one because she's currently dating Tim Burton. So I think that's pretty cool, actually.
I mean, are you insinuating, Brian, that she got this role because she's dating Tim Burton?
Not even close, because Monica Bellucci is an international treasure. But yeah, they're gonna have some fun with that sequel. I'm into the idea.
Yeah, and I am curious to think what are they gonna do. From what I've seen, it looks like they're trying to stick to the stop motion, or at least give it that feel. I don't know if they actually did stop motion.
I read up on this. They actually did. They did in favor of stop motion throughout the course of the sequel. Yes.
Oh, all right. I mean, that is one thing that's like, when I think of the Beetlejuice movie, I think of that stop motion, specifically the sandworms, the sequence where Beetlejuice eats the fly.
Yeah. Everybody always says the line that doesn't exist. This is one of those, like, Mandela things. People say the line that doesn't exist, want a Zagnut, but he never actually says that. He just holds it up.
Yeah,
he's like, you want a bite?
He just holds it up. Yeah.
Got me.
Got me.
And then he does the line from The Fly. Help me. Because he's, like, smothering it. And also worth note, this is actually an Oscar-winning film.
Oh, what did it win?
For Best Makeup.
Oh, no, okay, that I could see.
Yeah, and there was, we mentioned there was the sequel that never happened in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
After the success of this, after it was a huge hit, huge instantaneous cult classic syndrome, Beetlejuice, there were plans for a sequel called Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. The script was written, Burton and Keaton were in heavy talks. They never got it sold through the studio.
Yeah.
But it did get pretty far.
That's always tough to think. Like, even when you're, like, household names at that point, you still got huge hurdles to get something made.
Yeah. I do think it's one of Elfman's better scores, I would say. It ties itself in with, like, the Jamaican classic tunes, and, like, still manages to be, like, spooky, creepy, and funny all at the same time, which is an insane balance to strike.
Yeah. No, I mean, Danny Elfman and Tim Burton have worked a lot over the years, and of course, you just wouldn't think, is he doing the latest? I'm assuming he is.
I believe so. I don't see why he wouldn't be. This, like, Beetlejuice was kind of their Jaws, you know, like they had collaborated before, but I mean, this was kind of the first huge hit that they had as a unit. So
I mean, this essentially, you know, along with, like, things like, you know, Edward Scissorhands, really sort of launched that subgenre of dark comedy horror that Tim Burton is known for.
Yeah, and I think, like, those kinds of things are definitely his best. He's tried other things. I think that the best thing he's done outside of horror comedy would probably be Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah,
maybe
which,
like, a personal favorite.
No, and yeah, with Johnny Depp. Yeah, and that is one where it still has that Tim Burton feel. It's not as, this is definitely, Beetlejuice is a much more zany movie, I would say. Yeah. Zany story.
Oh, absolutely.
Sleepy Hollow it still has that Tim Burton look and style, but I think it takes itself, I wouldn't consider that a comedy, and that one takes itself a little bit more seriously, even though it has some, you know, like, out there moments, which you could say are a little, like, ridiculous in the sense of them happening, but they're not meant to be laughed at. I'm just thinking of the moment in Sleepy Hollow where the Headless Horseman takes, like, he can't go into the church, so he takes, like, he breaks a piece of the fence off, a pike, and then, like, throws it through the window and pulls one of the guys out from the church using it as like almost like a lasso, and then chops his head off.
There's I could go off about that one as
yeah,
well.
But anyway, like that's what I'm saying. Like that something like that almost sounds like something that like if you want a more humor, R-rated like, Beetlejuice thing, some sort of thing that Beetlejuice would do to like but obviously in Sleepy Hollow it's meant to be taken more seriously and shocking. Whereas in Beetlejuice, it is to have that little bit, lighter tone in.
Well, I love using like the supernatural for just comedic beats.
Mm-hmm.
Like that introductory sequence especially where Beetlejuice and the Maitlands first meet like face to face.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of like clever camera tricks and like costume change things, and like the camera just moves forward on Beetlejuice and then it backs up, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, and then he's wearing Adam's clothes. So we even shop at the same department store.
I love the one line he says when he first emerges, after she says his name 3 times finally to get out.
Yeah.
And he rises up from the ground. He's like, attention, Kmart shoppers. Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't hear that anymore, but I can remember anytime we would go to Kmart and that would come on. Attention, Kmart shoppers. Now we have a blue light special over here on aisle 12.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like there's so many just glorious, like incredibly clever comedic beats in this, like all through like the veil.
I still love the
just
scene.
The supernatural.
Who's the one? Who's the guy's name they hire? Is it Theo, the one who does the reading, the seance? Yeah.
So I did want to talk about Glenn Shadix. He actually passed away back in 2010 or so, but he was a legend. He was in both Nightmare Before Christmas, the Planet of the Apes redo, which I personally I know a lot of people hate that one. I'm kind of a fan of that one.
Yeah. Does he do the mayor in Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yes, he was the voice of the mayor, which I've always thought he did such a stellar job of that. Like the personality shifts back and forth between the front and backs. So good. He had a lot of great. He was in Kingdom Hearts and a number of other things.
What a great too, like sort of. I always took the mayor as Tim Burton's sort of little wink at politicians, or like, this is what I think. Like his head rotates and he has like two different, two-faced.
Literally two-faced.
Yeah.
like they only show like the most extreme personalities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's also another one I could fall down a deep spiral.
But anyway,
really,
we won't.
Really good.
But continue with.
Yeah, I really do like Glenn Shadix. He's great, and especially in his collaborations with Tim Burton. It was a shame he passed a number of years ago. But and this whole cast is just wild and great.
I always wondered the scene toward the end when he's like trying to flee his character.
Like they snap off his clothes.
Yeah, he does. He's
like wearing the blue leisure suit,
and like it comes up and it like just changes the color or something.
And he like screams bloody murder.
He's like he's so offended by that. I just always found that so funny and hilarious. I'm like, that had to be something that they just came up with on the spot. No, I would love to know. The story
I would love to know
too that shot in that moment.
Well, I love it because like there's like acts of violence going on, but he's like more mortified by like that fashion sense than anything.
It's like because like honestly, he could. I mean, Beetlejuice could do anything to like stop him, or you could just let him go, or he could like. I don't know. That's the one thing with Beetlejuice. It's like he's such a wild card in the sense of what he can do because he is a ghost. He's the ghost with the most.
Yeah, I'm the ghost.
But I always think of a line from Airbender in one of the episodes where one of the characters is like testing Aang, and they're like, "So why didn't you just tell us who you were?" Boomy, and he says, "Well, first of all, it's pretty fun messing with people." So I always took that as like a Beetlejuice kind of line. In that Beetlejuice is like, I'm bad, but I also enjoy messing with people. Like that's kind of my pastime. I like having a good time. If I'm gonna terrorize people, I'm gonna make it a good time though. I'm gonna if I'm gonna haunt you, we're gonna do this right. He has that sort of that like theatric diva.
You want to get some people out of your house. I want to help you get some people out of your house. Like that insurance salesman or something, or like the old school, like they literally do the infomercial thing towards the beginning when he's on TV.
Yes,
like as a cattle wrangler. Like, And then also, like we discussed Catherine O'Hara a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was super interesting that only like 2 years after this she did Home Alone, because they're such drastically different characters.
Oh no, I mean, most recently I think a lot of people know her from Schitt's Creek.
She's so good.
Yeah,
like, she is the best part of that show for me. Personally.
Yeah, this is a testament to her range as an actress, as an actor.
Her and every scene with her and David.
Yeah.
And she's also in Nightmare Before Christmas and a number of other things, Tim Burton related.
Yeah, everyone's.
I'm interested to see them try and re-wrangle this cast back together. I want to see the chemistry there.
Yeah, I am interested to see what. So in Beetlejuice, in the first one, Michael Keaton's character is always sort of seen as definitely a villain or an antagonist, a big antagonist.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
In this one, it's depending on how they do it. I mean, who knows? I'm going off of the trailer, so for all I know, the trailer could be showing me the last 5 minutes of the movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just going off of when he like rises and he's like, the juice is loose, you know? When he said that, I laughed so hard.
Yeah, Keaton will be worth watching if
anything, I do want to
sure.
just see this just to see Keaton perform again as Beetlejuice. I am curious, like, are they going to give him more screen time? Because again, not knowing that fact, I did not know he was in the original one for such a small window. But it makes sense now.
Yeah.
But he's so impactful, as we've said. Will this one?
Well, it's like that same thing. It's like that Jaws effect. You know, you show the shark as like.
Yeah, you want to show. So I'm curious. Like, will they have to put him on screen more, and will he have to become more of a mentor antagonist role to Lydia?
Yeah.
Like, is it going to be a bit of a, sort of a buddy cop movie going on a little bit in terms of their relationship? You know, like she's got to get his help to take care of. So I think it sounds like it's to help her daughter now or something, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious to know how much on screen in terms of actual runtime will Beetlejuice be in this one? And if so,
I definitely think it'll be more.
Will it play a major role in affecting, is Beetlejuice a character that you can have too much of on the screen? I don't know.
That I do believe you could.
Okay.
But, that's speculative at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's such an iconic original movie. It's going to be tricky to hit that same kind of balance because you have moments like the Day-O sequence, which are now like... I mean, it was career-making, that sequence alone.
I think that song...
For Tim Burton.
To me, that's where I know that song from.
Yeah. Like, they're forever intrinsically linked now. Like, the fists of shrimp and like...
Oh, yeah, and coming out, when they're doing... Yep. And funny enough, Beetlejuice has nothing to do with that sequence. That's all Barbara and Adam trying to scare them. And I love the reversal, the twist of how any normal person would be frightened out of their minds. And like I remember them saying, any minute now they're going to come running out.
they go running upstairs to look out the window.
Yeah, and they're like, and these like like Lydia's like stuffy parents and Theo and all that. They're just like, oh my god, that's so amazing. It's kind of almost like. They're almost like influencers before influencers were a thing.
Yeah.
Essentially, like how they react to it. They're like, oh, look at how we can become so famous and profitable off of these ghosts,
Yeah. Well, also like how Lydia said, like they're so defeated. Like the Maitlands are so defeated after that. She's like, they don't want to come down.
They don't want to come down. I love that twist. They don't want to.
They were trying to scare you. That's just so good.
Yeah, no, this is a great example of taking the familiar and being like, okay, what can we do that's fresh? Because as you said, you didn't mean it in a bad way at all. It is a simple story. No. It's just that it's that haunted house. It's a ghost story.
Yeah, but like told through the lens of a comedy, which honestly is genius.
Yeah, you wouldn't think to put that together when you're doing horror or when you're grabbing the elements of a horror story.
Well, it's like at times it has that like almost Wes Anderson, like Best in Show kind of stale humor.
Yeah. That dry,
which is simple, but like through how simple it is, can be very tricky to pull off.
Has some like I think some nods to like the old classic like Marx Brothers movies.
Yeah,
Groucho Harpo and stuff like that. Like even some Three Stooges moments. I think Keaton does some like maybe I'm thinking of a different movie, but I know some.
Well, there's definitely like even in like the third party characters, like way in the back scenes of things, like the football team.
Yeah,
like
coach.
Like I I really broke it down. Like I used to think that joke like spanned a large portion of the film. It literally bookends one other scene. Like you meet the football team, and then the last time you see them is one scene later.
Yeah, they're like, Coach.
And I was like, but it's so memorable. I was like, why did I think that this spans so longer? But
I don't think we survived the accident. What gave it away?
Just the fact that they keep calling her Coach. Like, there's just so many good moments. It's insane.
Yeah.
All the skeletons like being like on the floor doing data entry.
Uh-huh.
And then like the guy who got run over is like one of the caseworkers, and he just like flies right through a slot in the wall.
Goes into like a slot in the wall. Yeah. Does he say something like I'm just hanging around, or no?
Yeah, he has some like terrible joke.
Yeah. I'm flatlined or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, the surreality of like the hallways and stuff in the back, like the afterlife.
Yeah,
and it harkens to a lot of very interesting things. Like there was, I don't know if have you ever seen anything from Otherworld in Columbus?
No, I have not.
So it's kind of like a haunted house kind of thing, but it's like all surrealist art, and they definitely like took a lot of influence from like Burton-esque like stuff, like the Burton Museum, and obviously all of Burton's film work and stuff being of heavy influence. But I actually had the chance to go down there a couple years back, and I was like, I feel like I just stepped right into Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
And then just a few years ago, I think it was 2021 or so, they did Beetlejuice at HHN, and it was kind of the same. It actually was the first time I went through an HHN house that gave me a literal headache because they did like one of those long tunnel mirror infinity hallway things.
Yeah.
But it was like it was a black and white hypno spiral thing, and I was like, man, I love that house so much, but I need to like sit down for a minute. Like. They had a dude walking through the whole time, like mocking everybody as Beetlejuice. It was great. Total fun house atmosphere. It was awesome. Yeah. Well, even like where the name came from. Like, I love how like throughout the course of the film, Beetlejuice is spelled different, like from the actual title versus how you see it in the movie multiple times. It's like,
yeah,
you see it in the original Orion constellation, Betelgeuse, and then you'll see it like Beetlejuice, and then like it just adds to like the whimsical chaos of the character, like how there's nothing to grab onto. Well, it's intangible.
Yeah. I mean, he is essentially a con man in the way that or a con ghost or whatever. Oh, that was what I was going to bring up when you were talking about the hallways in the afterlife when they're first kind of going through, when they're first getting used to like the fact that they're recently deceased. They're in like a hallway. They're kind of by themselves, except there's a janitor, and they look behind a window, and it's like he says, and then there's like ghosts or something on the other end, but like other ghosts. He's like, that's the lost souls room or something.
Oh, yeah, the lost souls room.
He's like, that's death for the dead. I thought that was always an interesting little thing because it kind of, it's like
foreshadows.
Oh yeah, it's like it gives you stakes. Like it's that one thing of not forgetting. Like, okay, they're ghosts, but it's like, well, what are the stakes for them if they don't, get these people out of the house? And of course, when Theo gets the handbook, that's when it gets really bad, and it summons them, and then they start to,
decay, and like we're seeing that take its full form. For them.
Yeah. Then it leads to the funny thing where they're trying to say Beetlejuice. He's like, and he like out comes like the teeth, and they're like,
you get like the full-fledged like Bugs Bunny level comedy moments.
That's an exact.
It turns into like a full-fledged cartoon.
That Looney Tunes, jokes going on as well. Yeah, this is a very interesting blend of genre. I would say, obviously, we think of it as horror, but there's a lot of comedy in it.
I always say one of my favorite genres is horror comedies because I love horror, but I can't endure horror forever. Yeah. Like, I can't just watch an endless slew of horror. I have to throw comedies in there, and that's why I love horror comedies. It's a blend of awesome.
Well, yeah, and one of the old-time sayings, I don't know if it's an old-time saying or not, but I'm going to go with that. Some of the best comedy has drama, and the best drama has comedy.
I love it, yeah. And, the best comedy has horror, too.
Yeah. Well, it's just a way of saying that, like, life in general, like, you got to have that complexity, that variety. You want, you don't want to just hit the one note, which is why sometimes horror can be so hard to watch, or just such a hard to endure, because it's hitting you over the head with the horror element.
Yeah.
Oh, one little thing I love, there's one little moment. I mean, I know we talked about him, but when Barbara and Adam first they put sheets over themselves to be ghosts.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, that's become such a major plot point too, because their caseworker gets so pissed because they allowed themselves to be photographed.
Yeah.
So that's another level, like you were talking about stakes. Like there's a fear in the afterlife of any kind of proof getting out that they exist.
Yeah. No, your mother's going to kill you when she sees what you did to her $300 sheets or whatever he says.
Well, then on top of that, you have another great like Delia Dietz moment where Lydia's like knocking through the wall, thinking that her parents are having sex through the wall, but it's the ghost trying to moan and scare everybody. It's like we've talked before about how there's a lot, like so much of like the best comedy can come from misunderstanding, and that's like a amazing example of that. Like it's not from a like area of stupidity. Yeah, it's like from an area of assuming the worst when it's not the case.
Oh yeah, I mean when we talked about it in the Seinfeld episode, I'm pretty sure we brought up like one of the kings of misunderstanding, or using stuff like that or dramatic irony to create comedy out of it.
Yeah, and Sonny also does that to an amazing degree as well. But yeah, it's just unparalleled gem, the Beetlejuice. The Keaton is the man. Yeah. Mr. Mom and this alone, like...
Yeah, no, I mean, if you've never seen the first Beetlejuice, I highly recommend it, especially with spoopy season, the spoofs.
Yeah. Now that we're in it, I maintain September is the beginning.
You maintain September is the beginning?
And if it's not, I'm going to make it so.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Keaton's performance alone, all the performances, the writing, everything. I mean,
definitely one of Burton's best.
This is, I mean, dare I say masterpiece? Do I say masterpiece? Do we use? I don't use that word a lot to describe.
I will
something.
say that. If you won't say it, I'll say it. I'll take that bullet.
Okay.
Definite masterpiece for no other reason but Keaton's performance, but all around, like the style of it, the lighting, camera work, even like you wouldn't, not something you really think about in a movie like this, but honestly. Effects. Like even the visual effects too, like shooting on backplates and stuff, like for the phasing, like that was like still pretty.
Oh yeah, and keep in mind
new stuff.
Computer CGI is like non-existent still at this point.
Yeah, like you have to know your stuff at this time for what you're going to do with that kind of stuff. And like Back to the Future was really one of the only big movies doing those kinds of things up until this point. Yeah, and I would argue that just a few short years later they really hit the nail on the head for that stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely one to, if not enjoy, study deeply for its many complexities of comedy and horror and blend of chaos.
Yeah, a great genre bender going on here, like blending it together. Cross genre. This definitely is a case study. Got nothing else to say, but it's showtime.
Step right up. Come a little closer.
No, just okay, bring it in. Yeah, just take it back just a little bit. Right there. Okay, good. Okay, guys, this is their paperwork. You know they're not going to do it. This paperwork is ugly, thick, and it's got Dance's fingerprints. Oh, what does he say? No, you don't have to keep this. You can cut this out. But it says this paperwork is like Bob's wife. It's ugly, thick. It's got Dance's fingerprints all over it.
I honestly do not remember that, and I just watched this.
You don't remember that line? Oh my god, it's such a like. He's like, no offense, Bob. He's like, that's okay.
Where does this happen? Where was this?
It's in the beginning. It's in the beginning scene right after Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock walk out, and that's when he does that. Okay, come here, bring.
I thought you were talking about Beetlejuice.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about Beetlejuice. That's the second time you got me with this. 2 weeks in a row.
No, I'm talking about the other guys. But Michael Keaton's line, which is a Beetlejuice-esque line.
Gotcha. Different pages of the book.
I'm sorry, yes.
You're good.
Like, you could literally take... You can literally, I think, take some of the lines in Beetlejuice, specifically Keaton's lines, and put them in other comedies, and I feel like they would work still.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a legend.
And I'm not just saying that because he's a Pittsburgh native.
Oh yeah,
but yes.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like we get to see him all the time around town. Like every time I feel like I flip on the TV, he's just sitting in one of the stadiums.
So I am a little biased, but yes.
Yeah. I think that brings us to the end of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
Come on, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.